Hi friends, welcome back. Today we're talking about the surface area of prisms and pyramids. Now, these are the formulas and you'll want to write them down, but these formulas only work if you know how to use them correctly. And so we're going to go over how to identify your prisms and pyramids and what type they are so that you can use these formulas correctly. For example, let's start with this guy. So you'll see let's first just talk about what a surface area is. I'm going to actually do that with this guy. This is a rectangular prism, So when I take this prism and you see I can pull it out like this, right? I take this and I unfold it so I can see all of the sides laid out at once. This is called a net of a geometric figure. This net shows me all of the different sides of this prism. Now, if I find the area of each of these 6 sides and add those together, that is the surface area. But that's also time consuming to like draw out the net and figure out the area for all of those. That's why we use these formulas. However, what's really important here is that you learn how to identify the difference between different prisms. So this I said is a rectangular prism. So if all of your sides are rectangle, and remember a square is just a type of rectangle, then it's a rectangular prism. But sometimes you'll get something like this. So you look at this prism here, maybe it helps if I show it like this. So it looks like this guy right here, okay? Maybe you can see it this way, a little bit easier this way. So we see that there are a bunch of rectangles on the sides, but then on the top and the bottom, these guys right here are called pentagons, right? Because it's a 5-sided figure. So this is a pentagonal prism, and that seems silly, like of course it is, it's got a pentagon there, but that is half the battle in figuring out surface area, is identifying what your bases are, because your bases aren't always going to be, I'm shoving this in here, your bases aren't always going to be what's on the bottom here, right here. Sometimes it'll be flat like this, and this is not your base on the bottom here. That's really hard to kind of visualize. So what we're going to do is look at some of these so you can see what I'm talking about. So for example, I've got two figures here. This guy is a rectangular prism because all the sides are either a square or rectangle, right? Now, looking at this one, you can see that we have one side that is not a rectangle, that is a triangle. So that makes this thing a triangular prism. This one, also a rectangular prism. This guy right here, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 sides there. And so with our 6-sided figure here, we have a hexagonal prism. Now, let's take a look at some of these other ones. We have this one right here. And so I look and I see, are there any non-rectangles here? And there are. You'll see that there is a trapezoid right here. Trapezoid right there. So this is a trapezoidal prism. This one, again, is a pentagonal prism because you can see the pentagon right in there. Same with this one. This would be a pentagonal prism. So it seems really basic, but this is actually vitally important because what we have to do when we use our formulas is, for our prism formula, it looks like this. We have the height of the actual that connects our 2 bases. So if you have a non-rectangular shape in your prism, that is the shape identifying it, right? So like a trapezoidal prism, a triangular prism. So the height is what connects those two. Remember I said before, your base isn't always on the bottom, it can be on the sides. So your height isn't always going up and down. Sometimes it's connecting this way. So you have to be really careful. Otherwise, you're going to use the wrong height. So this is the height of your actual 3D figure connecting the 2 bases. This is your perimeter. This is 2. And when we use a capital B here, we mean the area of the base. So how does this all apply when we go to use this formula? Well, let's start actually with number 2. So if we look at number 2 here, we have the things we want to find are our height, our perimeter, that's the perimeter of the base, and we want to find the area of the base. So the first thing first is the height. Remember I said height connects your 2 bases together, and our bases are triangles. So the number connecting those would be this 5 here. And so if we have, let me get a brighter color so you can see. So there's our 5. There is our height. So our height is 5. Now the perimeter of the base, remember perimeter is adding them all up, right? So we have 9 and 6, and then we have 12 here. This 4.4 is just telling you the height of the actual triangle on the base there. So the perimeter is 9 plus 12 plus 6. So 9 plus 12 plus 6, just so I don't mess up, 27. Okay, now the area of the base. So we know that our base is a triangle. I'm going to redraw it. So here's our base here, right? So here's our base. And the way we find the area of a triangle is we multiply the base times the height and divide by 2. Now remember, when we do this, your height and your base have to be a right angle. You can't do like 12 times 9, which is this slanty bit here, or 12 times 6, which is this slanty bit. It's got to be the 4.4. So we're going to say, okay, 12 times 4.4, right? We get this, and then we divide that by 2. And when we do, we get 26.4. So the B is 26.4. The area of our base is 26.4. So now we're ready to use our formula. We say, okay, the surface area equals the height, which is 5, times the perimeter, which is 27, plus 2 times the area of the base, which is 26.4. Okay, so if we have 5 times 27, we end up with 135. 135 plus 26.4 times 2 gives us 52.8. Add those guys together, we end up with 187.8 yards, and we're talking about surface area, so yards squared. Okay, so let's talk about another one here. All right, for this guy right here, actually we're not going to do this one, but I do want to point out, because we haven't yet figured out the area of our well, actually in a previous video you did figure out the area of regular polygons, but I don't want to go into that too deeply today. So, but what I do want to point out is that, remember when I said that H represents, so let's look at this, your height represents connecting the two bases together. So in this case, your height would be 4, right? So let's look at some of these other ones that I have. This is a good one, number 8. Number 8 here. This is a trapezoidal prism because we've got 2 trapezoids there, right? And so in this case, the base is not what's on the bottom. Our base is a trapezoid, so the base is on the side. So we have our base here. Let me draw that base out. It's a trapezoid that looks like this. And then we've got this dashed line, which is 4.6, makes a right angle. This is 5, and this is 9. Okay, so the things that we need in order to find this are our height, our perimeter, and the area of our base. Now, if you don't remember, the area of the base of a trapezoid is base times the height. However, we can't play favorites with the base. We have to, we can't choose 5 and we can't choose 9. So what we do is we say the area is 9 plus 5 divided by 2, because that will give us a nice fair number. And then we multiply it by the height, which is 4.6. So if we take 9 plus 5, that's 14, and we divide it by 2, we get 7. And notice how 7 is right in between 5 and 9, right? So it's nice and fair. So the area equals 7 times 4.6. So we've got 7 times 4.6 gives us 32.2. Perfect. So in this case, we have now found the area of the base is 32.2. So the other information we need is the height and the perimeter. Now the height is what connects your two bases. So your height is not 4.6 here. Be very, very careful with that. Your height is actually 14. And in this case, our units are miles. So 14 miles here, because that's what's connecting those two bases together. So be very careful. That's probably the hardest part of this. Now the perimeter is all the way around the outside of our base here. And again, that base is on the side. So we have 9 and 5, and then we know this is 5 as well, and this is 5, because you see that we have those hash marks to help us out, right? So we have 15, and then we have plus 9. Sorry, I fixed my camera there. So 15 plus 9 is 24, right? So our perimeter is 24. Okay. So now we're ready to use our formula. The surface area equals the height, which is 14, times the perimeter, which is 24, plus 2 times the area of the base, because there's 2 bases there. All right, so 14 times 24 gives me 336 plus 32.2 times 2 is going to be 64.4. So add those guys together, we get a surface area equals 400.4, and we're talking miles. So miles squared. So be very careful when you are trying to find the perimeter or the surface area of these figures. Now, with that said, let's take a look at one of these, which is a rectangular prism. A rectangular prism, we've got the same idea here. We are going to find, let me move my papers around so it's a little neater there. Okay, so again, we need to find the height. So we have height and our perimeter and the area of our base. Now, the base here is this rectangle, the square 10 by 10 by 10, right? So if that being our base, and I probably should have highlighted it in this color because that's the color I've been using. So this being our base, right? Well, that's easy to find the area of. It's just 10 by 10 because it's a square, right? So the area of the base is just 100 because it's 10 by 10. Now, the height, remember, is what connects our 2 bases. So that's going to be this 5 guy. It's not the height of the base, right? It's the height that connects the 2 bases. So I cannot say this enough because that's where I see most of my kids make their mistakes. So the height is going to be 5. Now, the perimeter of my base is 10, 10, 10, so that's going to be 40. So the surface area equals our height, which is 5, times our perimeter, which is 40, plus 2 times the area of the base. So we get 80, oh wait, no, that's not 80. What am I thinking? That is 200. So we've got 5 times 4 is 20 plus a 0. Why was I totally messing that up? So we get 200 plus 200. So the surface area is 400, and we look at our unit, it's yards. So we say 400 yards squared. Okay, so those are for prisms. Okay, so for our pyramids, we have the slant height, that's the sides, times the perimeter divided by 2, plus, again, that capital B represents the area of the base. So let's take a look. And again, this is one where you're really going to need to identify the bottom, the base. In this case, the base is the part that's not pointy, so it's a little bit easier when it's a pyramid. So let's take a peek here. So for example, if we take a look at this guy right here, we look at our base and we see that it is a triangle. So it's going to be a triangular prism. If we look at this one, we see that it is a 5-sided figure in the base. So this would be a pentagonal prism. So we would find the area of the pentagon, and then we would also have to find our slant height, which would be this bit right here. And we would have to find the perimeter all along in here. So let's stick with the triangle first. I know you know how to find the area of a pentagon or any regular polygon, but we'll stick with triangle for right now. So again, that surface area is going to be our slant height times the perimeter divided by 2 plus the area of our base. So first things first, we look at this base, and I'm going to redraw that like this. And I see that this is right in there, that is 3.5. And then the rest of these things are all 4. So how do I find the area of a triangle? Base times height divided by 2. But remember, has to make a right angle. So my area is 4 times 3.5 divided by 2. So we enter that into our calculator and we get 7. So our area is the area of the base equals 7. All right, so we need slant height, we need perimeter, and we need the area of the base. So we know that's 7. At this point, we know our slant height is 10.1 because that's along this slanty bit here. So our slant height is 10.1, and the perimeter of our base is 4, 4, and 4. So we add that up, we get 12. So our surface area is going to be 10.1 times the perimeter of 12 divided by 2 plus 7. So take 10.1, multiply that by 12 and divide by 2, I get 60.6 plus 7 gives me 67.6, and we're looking at meters. So we would have meters squared. So our surface area, and I should probably put that in there, surface area is 67.6 meters squared. Let's take a look at another one that we can do. Okay, so in this case, we have these two at the top are rectangular pyramids, right? Rectangular pyramids, not prisms. The surface area is going to be, so surface area equals LP, slant height times perimeter, divided by 2, plus the area of the base. So we're going to need our slant height, we're going to need our perimeter, and we're going to need our area of our base. So we take a look at the base, and is a rectangle, which is the easiest way to figure that area out. Multiply 5 times 7, and we get 35. So the area of the base is 35. Let's do the perimeter now. We have 5, 7, so 5 and 5 is 10, and 7 and 7 is 14. So 10 and 14 is going to give us 24. The perimeter is 24. Our slant height is this bit right here, which is 8.7. And then taking a look at this. So, okay, so pause on this one. I actually grabbed the wrong one. Do you see there's 2 slant heights here? This one is one that you don't usually use this formula for because you have this rectangular prism. You can find the average of these 2 slant heights and call that your slant height, and that generally will most of the time work. But I just looked, and you don't have rectangular prisms that you're going to be doing, and this actually wasn't the problem that I was meant to do. So bear with me. We're going to stop that one and go to this guy. So your problems are going to look much more like this, which makes it a little bit easier. I'm so sorry about that. So surface area equals slant height times perimeter divided by 2 plus the area of the base. So in this case, we have our slant height, we have our perimeter, and we have the area of the base. Now, with this said, what we're going to do is find the area of the base, which is a square. So we do 5 times 5, which gives us our 25. Let me back up here so you can see better. 25. And then our perimeter is 5 and 5 is 10, plus 5, we get 20. And our slant height is 6.5. So the way we would use this formula is the slant height, which is 6.5, multiplied by our perimeter, which is 20, divided by 2, plus 25. So a little trick here, you don't have to multiply and then divide here. What I could do is divide by 2 and get 1, divide by 2 and get 10. So when I do that, I end up with 65 plus 25. So 6, 7, 8, so 90. And we're talking about feet. So it'd be feet squared. So our surface area of this is 90 feet squared. So with that said, let's actually back up and go back to this one and talk about why this doesn't work. This rectangle here, if I were to draw a net of this guy right here, and in fact, let's do that, but we're going to do it on this. So let me slide that down. So here is our net. We take the pyramid and we draw it out like this. And we know that our base is 5 and 7, right? So this guy is 5 and this is 7. And then if I lay all of these out for a rectangular pyramid, just like that. Okay, so what we want to do is, we know the height of one of these guys is 8.5. And we know the height of the other one is 8.7. 8.7 attached to the 5. Yeah, okay, just making sure I got that right. Okay, so here I've just drawn a net out, right? And again, the area, the surface area is just finding the area of all these figures and adding them together. So on the bottom, we have 35. So we got 35 plus, now we can find the area. This is a 5 and this is a 7. So we can find the area of this triangle right here by doing 7 times 8.4 and dividing by 2, right? So 7 times 8.4 and then divide that by 2, and we get this area is going to be, let's use a different color so you can see, 29.4. So this is 29.4. This is 35. This is also 29.4 because it's the same shape as that triangle there. Now for this guy, we have 8.7 times 5. And then we divide by 2. So that gives us 21.75 on both sides here. So we have 35 plus 2 times 29.4 plus 2 times 21.75. All right, so we have 2 times 29.4 plus, and so that's 58.8. And then we've got 2 times 21.75 so that, oh, whoops, it would help if I did multiplication. 21.75 gives us 43.5. And then we're going to bring down this 35 here. So plus all these guys, we end up with 137.3. Okay, that looks more like it. And we were talking about centimeters, so this would be centimeters squared. So this is another way to do the pyramids if you don't want to use your formula, especially if you have two different slant heights. This would be a good way to do that. You can just lay it out as a net, and I like laying pyramids out as a net because you just fold them out and then you've got the sides. So hopefully this helped and you understand those formulas a little bit better. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Otherwise, we will see you next time.